This gentleman comes in, and I'm 100% sure I spoke to him. He came in, he was wearing a business suit, had a briefcase. Never seen him before, but he walked around, says hi to me, he's chatting to everyone as if he owns the place, as if he knows everyone and he's supposed to be there. He went from office to office, stealing wallets and purses, and I think he racked up a few $100s on the credit card before I even knew at the end of the day. So that's social engineering. It still goes on. They're skilled manipulators. They're good at what they do, okay? They use intimidation and threats, and we'll talk about that here as well. So they take advantage of our caring instincts. That's specifically the grandparent scam. The grandparent scam is probably the only one that really is, for us people that are older and have grandkids, right? I mean, young people generally don't have grandkids. So that's about the only one that I say is specifically aimed at a senior population, right? The rest, anyone gets caught on. Victims may be financially insecure, so even though we're saying we are more wealthy, some people aren't, right? And we need to look after our money, and sometimes, if someone comes along and it's a great investment opportunity, and it's we can't lose, and we're going to make 15, 20%. Maybe we want to jump in. Sometimes there's just greed, gambling, and investment scams. That's where that comes in as well. We'll talk a bit about that. The bottom part there where it says naive, I'm not saying you're naive. Sometimes if you're still together as a couple, and I know my wife and I, we were the same up until probably a few years ago when I started doing this, was I kind of did all the finances, right? My wife did everything else. I don't bring her 20 of these. Doing everything after that, but and that's okay. That we have comfort levels with what we do. We get comfortable with what we're doing. But what happens if you lose that partner, the one that's doing the finances? Well, now all of a sudden you've got a huge learning curve, right? But if we just, if we talk to each other, if we know where our money's going, what the bills are, and where our investments are, and things like that, then we don't have such a transition, and we're not as scared of it, right? If we know about things, then it's generally not as scary to us. Okay, next slide, please. We have a low reporting in Calgary. We're talking specifically about elder abuse back now. Sorry, we bounce back and forth because the two kind of intermingle. Estimates 1 in 20 elderly being financially exploited, okay, in some form or another, whether it's to, just small amounts of money to large sums of money. Only 1 in 9 reported. So in 2014, and sorry, I don't have any newer stats, but just to give you an idea, there was something of around, I think it was about 2,000 cases were reported to our elder abuse response team, okay? So if you now know only 1 in 9 was reporting, that's all we heard about. There was limited charges related, and that was, sometimes it's tough to get around it. And of course, as I've already said to you, most elder abuse is by our loved ones in some form. So it makes it a very difficult thing to do, okay? So it's to report it. And there's just a bunch of reasons. Embarrassment. Sometimes they're unaware they're being victimized, investment scams and things like that. I mean, if you bought into an investment within the last year, 2 years, chances are, I'll bounce back a little bit, but chances are it went down. Well, we don't know we're being scammed. That's what the markets are doing, right? They tell us it'll come back at some point, but we've probably lost money. So, lottery investment scams. It's just an embarrassment factor. Again, people getting caught in those. Fear of being viewed as too vulnerable. So I know my dad, he's 87, very independent person, was getting in a few minor little accidents. He had a bit more of a major accident, and good for him, made the decision that it was time to start driving, okay? But that can be a very difficult thing, right? It's taking away our independence, it's certain things, but it's better if we can come to that realization ourselves. Again, that loss of independence. And then there's intimidation and threats. When we talk about counter-revenue agencies, scam, we'll see some of the intimidation and threat schemes that are used for people not to report it. Okay? Keep going. I just throw this up there to give us an idea. So my best thing is to report to you, talking to friends, family, loved ones, neighbors. If you get together with them. We all have down days, right? We're all down, we're all up, and things like that. But if you notice that person is different, okay, over a little period of time, might be some of these signs up here. You know, they might be frightened, anxious, depressed, you know, unexplained or loss of assets. Well, as I said, we're kind of all in that boat at the moment, so maybe don't take that if they say, oh, the portfolio's down. Well, everyone's is, right? But if you notice a bunch of these things, then maybe that's just the time to have a little bit more of a conversation with them. How's things going? Is everything okay? And realize if you need some help beyond that, we're available. Calgary Police Service is available. You can give us a call on that. Maybe they're victims of abuse. Maybe they've lost money through a scam, things like that. Okay, so you know, let's not be afraid to get them help because it only gets worse. Okay, next one, please. So that's kind of it. I want to say in a nutshell, but that's kind of it for the elder abuse thing. I don't like to get into it too much. I just want you guys to know that Calgary Police, we have a small unit dedicated. However, you know, we don't worry if you're being abused or you know someone's being abused or exploited. You phone Calgary Police Service and you're going to have a police officer, whether it's from our elder abuse response team or just a patrol officer will come out and initiate that complaint and get it going. We're there to help you. I just wanted you to kind of know that you know, we do recognize that there's some other things, and that's a great part about the elder abuse response team, is having that social aspect. The social worker in there gives us opportunities to do more things than just charge. They work in partnership. Maybe it's enough that, you know, if it's a family member, perhaps they need some counseling. Perhaps they need something else other than just being put in jail, which was sort of what was available to us before. It's like, okay, yeah, they've committed a crime, I can put them in jail. Well, and that's why we found that probably a lot of these cases weren't reported, okay, because we don't want to put our loved ones in jail. We want them to get help. And they can be in a tough situation, right? They've got families to care for and everything. Maybe they're too embarrassed or too ashamed to come to us and say, I can't support my family right now, right? Nothing to do. So, that being said, if anyone has any questions, I'm going to be around. I've been invited for your wonderful lunch, and I'm delighted to stay, so I'll certainly be here afterwards as well for any questions on that, if it's more personal. We're going to get into talking about the scams and frauds and things that are going on, and by no means I'm probably going to hit all of them, so if you guys have any questions, please feel free just to put your hand up and I'll try to spot you in the crowd and we'll get to it. So I'm not going to list these because we're going to go through each of these, so we'll head to the next slide, please. Okay, so first off, before we talk about the scams and stuff, we have to know what the bad guys are after. What do we need to protect, okay? And our financial identity, that's what we need to protect, okay? So you probably might know some of these things up there, your name and date of birth, that they need that, usually home addresses. SIN, social insurance number. All right, put you guys on the spot here. How many people have their social insurance card with them right now? Yeah? Okay. Quite a few. Okay. So, I won't pick on you, but you can answer if you know. I only know of 2 reasons that you need your social insurance number. One is at tax time, because we have to put it on our tax form. And the other one is if we're applying for a job. Anybody applying for a job? Good. I want to be there. I don't want to be applying for jobs. So I've had some people through these discussions that say, well, I need it when I go to do this, and I need it to apply, you know, for certain not assistance programs, but certain things. And I said, okay, do we really need them? Is that required by the Canadian government or whatever regulatory board we're applying to or something like that? I don't think so. They might ask for it as a form of ID, but I don't know any time we're obligated to produce that. Photo ID, 2 pieces of ID, a photo ID and something like that. My social insurance card, my wife's, both my kids are in the safety deposit box in the bank. So when I had my wallet stolen, you guys will know about that way back. To begin with, it was an absolute pain to go through to try to remember everything there. Bad guys, one of the most important pieces of ID is that social insurance card, okay? So with that and a few other pieces of ID, they can take on your identity. And that's what they want to do. They want to get a false identity that links back to you, okay? So everything, a few years ago when I started preparing to come out and talk to our generation of people and saying, we're the only ones getting scammed. I started to look. There was a bit of a phenomenon going down in the States around that time where bad guys were getting identities of young kids. Okay? So what they were doing is, we all know, right? We've all got kids, grandkids. What's their favorite pastime? Facebook. Well, it's probably not Facebook. That's probably passé now. But social media, right? Everything is on there, right? You can go on there, and we know everything that they're doing, right? It's amazing what's out there. So bad guys were going on. They were getting all this information. They're applying for loans, right? It's money that the bad guys are trying to get that comes back to us. So if they've got social insurance number, if they've got our names, our home address, if they've got all things that you would need to apply for credit, okay, they're going to change a few things, obviously, right? If it's a 14 or 15-year-old, they're not going to have the date of birth. Those are the few details they'll change. And what happened was, it was a young guy, it was a couple of years, but he was going into university and he was applying for student loans. And he found out he had all this debt attached to him from a bad guy getting his ID, right? Or getting his, assuming his identity. Huge hassle for anyone to go through to try and get out of that, let alone, you know, probably 18-year-old at that time going into university to try and deal with that, okay? So that's what the bad guys are after, so we need to protect this information. Obviously, bank account numbers. Okay, one more question, put you guys on the spot. How many people have only one credit card? Okay, 2? 3? Or more? Okay. Okay, so the only reason I talk about credit cards again is if we lose stuff. I went to a call. It wasn't a senior. It was when I was working on the street. Went to a call where someone had used this gentleman's credit card.